What's up guys, Huso7 here, and today I've got a wizard build. I'm going to show you the gear that I use and show you how you can get through Torment 6. If you're having any troubles on your wizard, I'm going to go ahead and show you a build that you can work for and how you can progress. And it's a pretty easy build to work on, and I'm going to tell you how to play it and how it works and the gear that you need. So this is a set you've probably seen. It's called the Magnum Opus, and let me show you just what this does with the 6-piece bonus. And you can get this with a Royal Ring of Grandeur, or you can actually wear all 6. You see I'm actually wearing all 6 pieces, not a Royal Ring of Grandeur. I'm using Unity and the Halo, which I will tell you why in just a minute. But let's take a look at this. So the 2-piece, it just basically allows us to get back our cooldown on Slow Time. Well, Slow Time is a pretty cool spell initially, but it's not usually used much. But the 4-piece is going to make it very worthwhile. Check it out. Enemies affected by your Slow Time take 2,000% weapon damage every second. Basically, your slow time just turns into a really amazing dot that you can cast on enemies that will kill them very quickly. In addition, with the 6-piece, enemies affected by slow time take an additional 750% damage from Arcane Orb, Energy Twist, Magic Missile, and Shock Pulse. So you can actually make a build that takes all 4 of those if you want, or some variants of them. I actually just take 2, which is Magic Missile and Arcane Orb. So my primary and my secondary are the 2 that I choose to get the damage bonus from. And that's just because I don't like the Twister, and I want to keep these other 4 open, because I obviously have to have one for slow time. I like having Magic Weapon to increase my damage, and then I like to have an armor, and I'll show you why I use Black Hole. So that is my build. That is the gear that I'm using, and basically the build is an Ice Sorceress build. So what you'll see is that I have my slow time, like I said, I've got my magic weapon, and then I use Black Hole with absolute 0. And this is going to give me, this is going to get increased damage by cold for every enemy hit. So this is very powerful, especially against lots of enemies. So what I'm going to do is cast slow time, and then I'm going to cast the Black Hole to pull enemies in, which is going to give me a little counter down here, which is going to increase my damage. I use Glacial Spike just because it's cold damage and because I can freeze enemies, and I use Arcane Orb with the Frozen Orb because it's cold. And then I use Ice Armor, and Ice Armor is great because it's already a good as it is, but with this item, the Halo, you can see that it is even better. It makes your Ice Armor now reduce attacks by 51% and automatically cast a Frost Nova when you take 10% of your life damage, which is going to be awesome because you're going to keep a Frost Nova, you're going to do some damage, and you're going to see that when you struck by melee, you get the 3-stack increase, and you have a chance to freeze enemies that attack you. I'm going to show you some more pieces of gear real quick, but I want to show you one more thing, which is I also, to go with my cold build, have my follower equipped with the Unjang Do, which lets him freeze enemies that are below 18% life. If you are trying to solo greater rifts as a wizard, this is a wonderful item because he can keep the rift boss basically frozen. If you get some gear with attack speed, you see he's got attack speed on this and attack speed on this. If you get some gear with attack speed, he will be able to keep those enemies frozen the whole time. Now for the rest of my gear, I am just trying to stack cold damage wherever I can. You can see I've got cold damage here on Utar's Roar, which is a craftable item. So this is great because you can keep crafting as many as it takes until you get an ancient if you have the materials for it. So if you have this at the blacksmith, craft some of these. It will fit into the build perfectly. And then you can see I'm using the strong arm bracers. Now, you might notice that it's got fire skills on it. That was a pain. I really want to get a strong arm with cold, but I was using this initially with firebirds, and so I've got fire on it, and I can't re-roll it because I re-rolled the intelligence on it. But strong arm is great because enemies hit by knockback suffer 25% more damage, and your Black Hole counts as a knockback, so that will give you increased damage out of that. And if you can find one with cold damage, cold skills, you'll be able to increase that damage even more. So you can see here that I'm looking at just under 1 million damage, and if I scroll down, I guess it's actually at the top. If I look at my damage with cold, you can see that my damage is actually over 1 million. It's almost 1.2 million with cold. So let me show you this build in action. Let's just go to Act 1 Fields. And basically, like I said, this build is going to require that I cast my slow time and keep that up. So watch, when I cast my slow time, you can see the enemies are just dying in that right away. But not only, and I could just use this and that'd be strong enough, but not only are they dying in that right away, but watch what happens when I throw it on them and then also throw some arcane orbs on them. You can see they just die right away. And if I need to reset my cooldown, I can just cast some more arcane orbs, reset my cooldown. So this is like a wonderful build. It kills things right away, and I haven't even shown you that I can keep this up by sucking the enemies in with Black Hole, and you can see that now I got an 11 stack on it, which is going to give me an 11, but times 3, so 33% extra damage. Now, one sort of note about this build is that it's pretty hard to kill things. I'll try to kill things without using slow time, and you will notice that it is going pretty slowly. When my Wreath of Lightning procs, it goes a little bit faster, but when I cast my slow time, that's where the real damage is. So if you're going to use this build, you want to make sure you're keeping your slow time up, and you can reset your slow time cooldown, you see, by using these two abilities. So you want to make sure that you keep those abilities up so that you're able to keep your slow time up. That's pretty straightforward. Let me show you my passive skills real quick when I get back into town, because the passive skills are important to this build as well. And you can use a variety of items or passives if you want to do a build like this. But let me just show you what I'm using. I'm using Audacity because typically enemies are pretty close to me. It's great because while you can use slow time, you can cast it as far away as you want. Oh, actually, I guess you cannot. A range 60 yards away. So you can cast it pretty far. I can cast it basically at the top of my screen up there. But I typically end up just casting it close to myself because I'm using Audacity. So another good skill to, if you want to take with Audacity is, or I mean in place of, you could take Elemental Exposure, you could take Blur, you could take any one of those. But I tend to do this because I like to have enemies close. Another one that pairs with this really well is Unwavering Will, because if you're standing still, you can just cast the slow time right on yourself, and then you can have enemies come to you. I don't use Unwavering Will because I find myself moving a little too much, and I'm not benefiting as much as I'd like from the damage increase, and I get my armor increase from this, and so I actually prefer Glass Cannon, so I get the 15% rather than, I think it's 20. Oh, it's actually only 10, so I like the Glass Cannon better. So I do use Glass Cannon. It does decrease, excuse me, my armor and resistances, but I like having the ice armor for that reason. I use Cold-Blooded so that I'm able to deal more damage to cold enemies, and then I use Prodigy just so that I can refill my arcane power quickly. Let me show you one more thing about this build, which is that using this Halo, even if you don't have this build, this Halo of Aerial Ice is a great item, because let me show you what happens when I run into some issues and some enemies are hitting me. Let me try to find some melee enemies. Again, because this ice armor is going to freeze melee enemies, not ranged enemies, so that's my only issue. But watch what happens when I come over here, and you see when these enemies hitting me, they are freezing themselves. And I'm taking greatly reduced damage from them. Again, not the throwers, just from the melee. But this will really help because I am able to freeze them all. I can drop this right on myself, suck them all in, and then I can one-shot them all with my Frozen Orb. So it's a great build for survivability as well. If you run into a pinch, if an enemy does escape, including bosses, you can keep yourself alive by having that in your tool, by having this Halo, because you get the damage reduction and you get the ability to freeze them. So there you have it. That's the build I play with. I have a lot of fun. I'm able to do just fine in T6 here, and so I wanted to show you my wizard build that I was using. So thanks so much for watching. If you learned something new in this video, be sure to leave a like, and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of my Diablo 3 content. Thanks so much.